Hey VC, how's everybody doing? Hope you guys had a good week. It's James coming back at you with another collections video. Before I get started though, just a couple quick updates. I didn't make a video last week. I wasn't feeling very well. Came down with a bit of the flu or whatever it was, who knows, but I just did not have a good weekend and was pretty much laying in bed all weekend watching Walking Dead. I'm catching up on some old series that I missed out on. Never got into The Walking Dead until recently, so I actually watched the entire second season last weekend, so I'm feeling much better, back to my old self, and back at you with another video, so good to be back. A couple quick shout-outs. I wanted to do a couple shout-outs before I get started on the music talk today, and that is, wanted to wish my friend Ben Simpson a happy birthday. Ben, I just met you not that long ago, just maybe a couple months ago, and you're relatively new to the VC, at least the vinyl collecting part of the vinyl community. You do have a great channel though, and I enjoy your videos, and that's how I met you, is through your video channel, talking about your love and passion for the Kinks and AC/DC and some classic rock that you like, and you're another Beatles collector. And today you celebrate your birthday, so I wanted to wish my friend Ben Simpson a very happy birthday and encourage you guys who enjoy my channel to check out his channel. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description part of this video. So happy birthday, Ben. Also wanted to give a shout out to a friend I haven't spoke to in a very long time. We used to be quite close on Facebook, and somehow we've lost touch because you don't have Facebook anymore. I know you've got some health issues, and quite frankly, I'm not even sure if you watch my videos, but if you do, I wanted to give a shout out to my friend Jim Talon. Jim used to be a very active member of the vinyl community, both on the Facebook side of things and on YouTube, and unfortunately we have not heard too much from Jim in quite some time. He did make a video, oh geez, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and seemed like maybe he was coming back at it a little bit slowly. So we wanted to wish you good health. Hope you're doing well, and a shout out to you, Jim, and I wanted you to know I was thinking about you. So today was also a bit of a sad day in the music world because we lost a legend. In the blues world, we lost B.B. King today, so I would be remiss if I didn't say something about the legend and influence that will continue on for many, many years and generations from B.B. King. I unfortunately don't have any B.B. King records to show you. The only thing I own from B.B. King is a album he did with Eric Clapton, Riding with the King, that I'll show you in a future video when I do some Eric Clapton talk. And I have, I think that's it actually, I have When Love Comes to Town, which is on Rattle and Hum, a song that he recorded with U2. So other than that, I don't have, unfortunately, any B.B. King to show you, but I am a fan, and I hope that, unfortunately, his passing will inspire me to go hunt down some of his music. So, my little nod and wink to Mr. B.B. King. Okay, that brings us to today's topic in music collections video, and that is my passion and love for this band is pretty strong. And I hope that I do a good job explaining how much this band has meant to me through the years and continues to be such an influence on my life, and that is the wonderful band Talk Talk. Obviously you guys know who I'm talking about, who follow 80s music. They were pretty influential even back in their time and continue to be a major influence in today's music. And wanted to show you what I've got in Talk Talk and talk a little bit about their career. What I'm showing you here is, I believe, their first mini album. At least that's what they're calling it here, introductory offer mini album. I don't know if you today would call that an EP or if it is indeed a mini album, but it's just a 4-track 1982 release on EMI. Contains 4 songs: Talk Talk, Serious, Today, and Candy. The single Talk Talk is also the band name, obviously, and was a pretty successful single. And also the song Today is pretty well known by that band. Talk Talk started off fairly traditionally in the early 80s as a British new wave band, and maybe didn't stand out as much as they do today because their first two albums of their very limited 5 album collection is, I guess you would say, ordinary. The first couple albums are mainstream, the new wave albums, and they're quite good in their own right. But it's their later work, their final 3 albums, that people tend to get into more now, and they were way ahead of their time in the later part of their career. And of course, we're talking about the wonderful frontman Mark Hollis, who primarily was the principal songwriter, along with one other gentleman. His last name escapes me. It's Tim something. They wrote the bulk of the work of Talk Talk, and their early albums are not quite as loved, at least by me, as their later albums, but they were a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more accessible, and in fact were contemporaries and counterparts to bands like Duran Duran. In fact, I believe they opened up for Duran Duran on their Rio tour, at least in part of the world. So you can kind of take their early work and then their last 3 albums as 2 almost separate identities. And their first full-length album was called The Party's Over, a vinyl copy here for you from 1982 as well. This contained songs that were on the first EP, Talk Talk, The Party's Over, Today, Candy, Mirror Man, and it is really a good album, and it stands on its own as a fine record. And it does, even in their early days, maybe separate themselves from the crowd in that early 80s British new wave group of bands that came about. And even in their early days, to me, their music does stand out as a little bit unique and different. And then you get into more of their last 3 albums, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But their first 2 albums here, The Party's Over, and their follow-up to that, which came out in 1984, 2 years later, was probably their most commercially successful album during their 10-year lifespan as a band, and that is It's My Life. And it also contained the single of the same name, It's My Life, which was a fairly big hit here in the U.S., and I believe it was a pretty big hit internationally as well. Most of people who are only casual fans of Talk Talk may know them from that song, It's My Life, which was their biggest U.S. hit. Dum Dum Girl is also a single from this album, and I really, really like a couple other tracks that maybe don't get enough attention. Renee, I do like It's Such a Shame quite a lot, and Tomorrow Started and The Last Time on the second side are also fantastic songs. So the first 2 albums, while not as remarkable as the rest of their career, do stand out, and they do, obviously they have some fantastic artwork. From this album on through the rest of their career, they had a guy by the name of James Marsh do all of their album, single, all of the artwork for the band, and it actually is really great artwork. Very, very abstract, I guess you could say. A little bit of Dali influence, perhaps. And as I show you the rest of their catalog, unfortunately only 3 more albums, you'll see what I'm talking about, that this was the beginning of their relationship with James Marsh, and he did some wonderful, wonderful artwork with the band. So, first 2 albums, very successful on both sides of the Atlantic, and they were very commercially successful. And then in 1986, they really decided that they wanted out of that commercial aspect of music making and went in a completely different direction, and that's when I think that the band really flourished and really stands the test of time and is so influential in what we know and love today, in today's music, and so ahead of its time. I'm probably not giving it justice here, but the next album that they came up with is called The Color of Spring, and this is a Japanese copy. I do not have an original copy of this on vinyl. It goes for fairly big money. This came out in 1986, but it must not have been very... Either that or people just want it and hang on to it, and you don't see it out and about that much. I have never out in the wild seen an original copy of this on vinyl. I know they exist, and you can buy them online, and they're still, you know, somewhat reasonably priced in the $50, $60, $70 range, but that is a lot. But I was happy that they did reissue this. This says it's a not for export Japan only, but I have seen this quite often, and other people in the vinyl community have this, so it's not as scarce as you might think. But the cool thing about this record is also contains a bonus disc. There's a 6-track bonus disc on color vinyl. Maybe I should show you that real quick before I talk about the album. And it does contain live tracks from their concert that's become pretty well famous live in Montreux. That there is a full-length DVD of it as well. This is the Montreux Jazz Festival from 1986, and it comes on a gray, marbly type vinyl. And really, really happy to have something from them live on vinyl. And to my knowledge, that's the only release that they ever had live on vinyl. But the album itself is really remarkable, and it's what's so cool about it is it's just like anti-system. It's anti-establishment, it's anti-record label, it's just anti-everything. It just was so unique and different for its time. And it was really the beginning of the post-rock era, if you want my opinion. I mean, some may argue with that, and maybe it's a bit extreme to say that, but in my opinion, I think it's valid. This has songs on it called Happiness is Easy, Life's What You Make It. That is the single that I suppose got even moderate airplay, at least in the US. This was not a commercially successful album at the time. In fact, a lot of people didn't like it when it came out, and maybe I would even be considered one of them, because I was a fan. You know, typical teenager in the 80s. I liked, you know, the hits music. I was just a typical kid that wanted stuff that was popular on the radio, and I didn't give this album much attention at all when it came out in 1986. But now, you know, through the test of time, it has become one of my favorite albums of all time, The Color of Spring, and it is really just remarkable. Give It Up is another fantastic song, Living in Another World. It just is nothing like it for the time that it came out. And bands like, well, you know, one of my very favorite bands going today is Elbow, and they cite Talk Talk as a major influence on them, as many other bands and many other artists do. Mark Hollis was a remarkable songwriter, and unfortunately I do say was, because, you know, he really has disappeared off the off the planet when it comes to the music industry, and post 1991 people have no idea really what he does. He's just a typical citizen and father and family man, and I think that he just decided to drop out entirely. And some of their work, you can see that they were kind of leading up to that. You know, he was very, very unhappy with a lot of things in the music industry, and they were able to do one more album with EMI. I think, no, this is not. This is the departure, actually. They left EMI after The Color of Spring, so they only really did 3 albums with EMI Capital. And, you know, it's quite unfortunate that they got bad treatment from that label. And but I will say that Mark Hollis is probably not the easiest person to deal with. From videos I've seen and interviews I've seen on YouTube, you know, he's definitely a challenge, and I can see perhaps where there was a lot of conflict between a label and what they were trying to do. They do have 2 more albums, and it looks like they moved on to Parlophone. Spirit of Eden is probably their most beloved album now in today's world. And this is really, really completely non-commercial. There's not a commercial thing on it, probably nothing that would be played on the radio. They did attempt to release a single called I Believe in You from this album. They're quite long songs. They're very experimental. They have a lot of jazz influence. There's a lot of improvisation in it. It almost seems like some of these songs were done in one take, although I know that's not true. It really gives you that impression that what they were trying to accomplish at that time was a lot of improvised music, and it was a lot of jazz influenced, and it was just completely different. This is 1988, folks. This is the time when we were hearing really commercial crap. from so many. And, I really have to hand it to the band like Talk Talk to do something completely outside of the norm. And this album stands on its own. If this is the only album that you ever get from Talk Talk, if you like post-rock music, this is quite up your alley. And again, the artwork is just spectacular. Just wonderful. And I'll show you some of the singles I have collected from them through the years that will reinforce some of the artwork again. So Spirit of Eden, 1988, is just a beautiful album. And they were able to do one more album with Parlophone, and I'm sorry, not Parlophone, Polydor, and it really is probably one of my personal favorite albums of all time too. And I said that about the last three albums, but they're all kind of one unique entity to me, and they really veered from the norm on their final album. And while it may not be everyone's cup of tea, I absolutely adore this album, and it's called Laughing Stock. And I think it's such an appropriate title because, they almost had become a laughing stock, because they weren't selling many albums anymore. And they were having a very, very difficult time finding their audience and their niche. And many, many people had given up on the band. And this album is absolutely remarkable. And I would encourage you, any music lover, to check out this album. It's so difficult to describe that I feel like I'm not doing a very good job. And the track listing is almost immaterial. I'll show it to you if you want to hit pause. Some of the tracks are difficult to pronounce, so I'm not going to try. But the final track, Piano, is a masterpiece, 14-minute opus, if you will. This is a difficult listen if you're new to this type of music. It will challenge any listener, even this day and age. This came out in 1991, and it really stands even today. How many years later is that? 2001, 2011. It's 24 years since this album came out, and it still will challenge any listener to really stretch your music taste. And I just absolutely love it. So 1991's Laughing Stock was the final album from Talk Talk. And that was it. Unfortunately they disbanded at that point. Mark Hollis did have one solo album, and I'm very lucky to have that on vinyl as well, and it is the self-titled Mark Hollis, and this was his last musical output, and probably will be his last musical output ever. I do not see that changing, although, I would love to see what he could do today. This was a reissue in 2011 on Universal Music, but it actually came out, I think, in, I'm not even sure of the year. It wasn't that long after Laughing Stock, maybe a year or two, I think. And it really doesn't have, again, any singles on it. It's a very quiet, understated, piano-driven album. It's just, you really have to check it out. I mean, this is a remarkable album. It will, again, challenge your ears, and it is beautiful. It's just a real stunning, stunning album. So, unfortunately, the last music from Mark Hollis, the singer, songwriter, and principal, musician from Talk Talk. As I said, there is the live DVD of Live in Montreux if you want to get a feel. I don't have a copy of that. Feel for how they are live. YouTube, there's a full performance of it in HD if you want to check that out. I might put a link in my description to that because they were a fantastic live band. And I'll just go through the singles real quick. I'm not going to draw this out too long, but I hope I put them in chronological order. I'm not 100% sure if I did, but I think I got close. Here's a 12-inch single for My Foolish Friend. Again, fantastic artwork. Even in the early days, they were very interested in the whole image of their records. This is, and the second song on here is Call in the Night Boys from 1983. So I can see I'm a little out of order here already. Here's a 12-inch single for Another World. This is the early Talk Talk. Again, a little bit more of that new wave era, and the doesn't look like there's a B-side on this one. Could be just a mix on the B-side. Doesn't say, so in the effort of time I'll just say that. Here is a 12-inch single for It's My Life, the song I mentioned earlier, the title track from their second full-length LP. Again, A Game Again is the B-side on here. Oh, and here's the name of the other producer and songwriter from Talk Talk, Tim Freeze Green. Tim Freeze Green. I hope I'm saying that right. I know he had gone on to do a few other things after Talk Talk, but nothing much of any notoriety. It's on Wikipedia if you want to look it up to see what he had done post Talk Talk, but unfortunately didn't have much success with things. Here is a 12-inch single for Such a Shame. This one, I believe, 1984, 83, 84 era. Again, this has a different mix of It's My Life on it as well. So all these I have found in the wild through the years. The 12-inch singles were pretty prevalent in their early days, and then their last couple albums virtually had no singles at all. Here's a different version of It's Such a Shame extended mix and Callin' the Night Boy. Just different mixes again. Maybe different country of origin on some of this stuff. And I love the cover. Kind of psychedelic and weird. Let's see. Here's a single for Dum Dum Girl. 12-inch single for Dum Dum Girl. Nice condition on this one. Got lucky on that one. And it just says from the album It's My Life. And this actually has 4 songs on it, which is really cool. Dum Dum Girl, Such a Shame, dub mix. Without You, 12-inch mix, and Dum Dum Girl, 7-inch mix. So quite cool to have that. And here's a real beautiful, beautiful album, 12-inch single cover for Life's What You Make It. One of my favorite songs that they've ever done. And I just love it. Just beautiful artwork again. Just so stunning. This James Marsh, I don't know if he's got, I know I'll show you in a minute something he's done later on in his career, but I don't know what else he's famous for other than his work with Talk Talk, but if there is other things, please leave a comment so I can check out more of his artwork, because I just love it. Here's a different 12-inch single for, this is more different mixes of Life's What You Make It, and just, again, fantastic artwork, very bird theme. I know there's a different word I'm looking for, but I can't think of it, so I'll just refer to them as birds. But this is from 1990, so this came out a little bit later in their career, I think, when one of their hits packages came out. Just 2 different mixes of Life's What You Make It there. Here's another beautiful cover of Living in Another World on 12-inch that I have found in the wild, which I'm very, very happy to have. And this has another B-side on it for What It's Worth, which I believe was also on the album. So really, really nice and cool to have that. Such a beautiful... I actually have seen a picture disc of that very picture, this cutout here of a tiger's face on a butterfly, on a 7-inch, I guess you could, maybe it's a 10-inch picture disc, but I'd love to find that. I've not found that one yet. And here's another copy of Living in Another World, a different version of kind of the same stuff, but really, really cool to have it, and very fortunate to have found that. So just really different versions of the same song, but I primarily buy these for the artwork because they're so cool. And then finally, one more to show you. Again, different type of butterfly on this one. It's some sort of insect, and it's called Give It Up. So just really, really nice. So I hope I've done a decent job of explaining my passion and love for the band Talk Talk. A couple more things I'll show you quickly. If you just want to hear the hits, there's a couple different ways you can do that. I would recommend this on CD. I'm going to show you the cassette version of it. This is a very, very good compilation called Natural History. This is probably their most well-known compilation, and this contains just everything if you just want to focus on the hits. This is from their EMI years, so it would contain more of their early stuff, but it's definitely good to have, and it's really cool to have this cassette, and it's such nice condition as well. Much later on, Mark Hollis did actually pick the songs for kind of a follow-up to Natural History, and I believe he did curate all of the tracks on this one. There is just 10 songs on it, but it's more of their unknown, more obscure tracks, album tracks, but they were handpicked by him. This is called Natural Order. So this is another nice thing to have. Nothing I didn't have in some other format, but it's really cool to have them all together. And when I heard that he kind of curated this album himself, I'm like, oh, I gotta have that. So there is a nice 2 CD set of different tracks, different mixes. A lot of the stuff on these 12 inches are on a CD. It's called A-Sides, B-Sides. This is a double length 2 CD set. Again, fantastic artwork. And it's just got chocked full of great songs, extended mixes and remixes, and again, a lot of the stuff I've shown you on the 12-inch to take along with you on road trips, and if you like CDs, that's a great thing to have. This one's interesting, and I actually recently posted this in the CD community, this History Revisited. And the reason this is interesting, again, it's all remixes, is because this led to a lawsuit. Mark Hollis was so unhappy that EMI wanted to release this that he tried to stop it with a lawsuit, and obviously it wasn't successful because here it is in my hands, but you know, he just didn't, he just did not want this one to happen. So what can you say? He's a unique person and very strong-minded individual, so I like it. I enjoy it. He did not, so life goes on. And then finally, I'm going to tell you that there is a very cool, newer, I think it came out 2 or 3 years ago. I guess you could call this a tribute album, you know, that's called The Spirit of Talk Talk. And there's all kinds of different artists on this. It's a double CD, and it did come with an accompanying art book. The art book is incredibly expensive, and I would love to have one, but it just really gets up there in price, so I unfortunately do not have one. But it contains 30 songs, and it's got bands on here like 07, Turn-In Breaks. I always say that kind of funny. It's a British band, Turn-In Breaks. I do have a couple of their albums, and I like them. S. Carey. Some of my friends will know S. Carey. I know Ryan Dye, you're a fan, and I think Tim Guthrie, you're a fan, and all kinds of different artists on here. So just look up this CD. It's a tribute album, and it covers their entire catalog and artist renditions of Talk Talk. So you can see how well loved they are for a band that only had 5 albums. They've really stood the test of time, and they're still very well loved today by many people. And if you haven't heard of them, I know some of my viewers are classic rock people, younger viewers, and do yourself a favor and check out the band Talk Talk. So I hope I've done them somewhat of justice today, and natural history is a good one to start with. So start there. I wish everyone a happy weekend, and I'll be back next week with another collections video and some more updates on other things that are going on. So take care, everyone, and have a great weekend ahead. Bye now.